All right. Hello. We're back as promised to talk about episode 6 or part 2 or the to be continued of yesterday's episode. So, I'm calling this episode, Julie, Jungle Fever, or yes, I would like some cream in my coffee, or as Dean said, once you go black, you never go back episode. Because interracial dating, it was like, this is the episode. We're going to talk all about that. This is going to be important. But okay, let's talk about what actually happened, and then we can sort of dish.
Right, the undertones of the episode. Right, yes.
Exactly. Okay, so Lee and Kenny did not
yet again.
Exactly. Once again, back again, Lee and Kenny.
Right, exactly. Maybe they should have their own show because they seem to have a lot of chemistry, should we say? Because, okay, so the episode starts out at the end of their 2-on-1 date with Rachel.
Yes.
And, Lee has kind of thrown Kenny under the bus again, saying that he was really, almost violent, threatening him.
Well, he did. He said he pulled him out of the van, right?
Right.
Yes.
And, Kenny was like, what? He said he admitted that he was, I don't know how he phrased it, but that he, was, do you remember how he phrased it?
Well, I think he just said, that he was, angry and that, he had been very direct. And I remember he said emotional or, but with Kenny, yes. With Lee.
Right. So then Rachel was like, I don't know who to believe. I don't know what is going on. So she thinks about it and then she talks to both of them and she tells Lee, I just don't believe you. I don't have enough trust in you. And
I know.
Right. And sends him on his merry way. She's like, I think I'm going to have to send you home. So Rachel and Kenny get up to get in the helicopter, about to fly off into the wild blue yonder. And Kenny says, I need to talk to Lee.
Lee's like,
what?
Yeah.
And it really felt to me like, what is this about? Okay, so leaves Rachel in the helicopter. They're about to fly off to go talk to Lee, to vent his feelings yet again about, Lee's treatment of him and how, what he said. Lee's sitting down and Lee is kind of like, Lee has taken this whole thing as, I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to smile. I'm going to say some things. I know it's going to get you upset and I'm going to let it happen. So Kenny vents his feelings to Lee and they kind of get into it a little bit more, but Rachel at that point, she was like, I don't know what he's doing. Like, what is he doing? Honestly, Camille, I would have flown off. I would have said.
I thought that was going to happen for a second. For a second, when she was like, I feel ridiculous sitting in here. I was like, you're going to tell these people, like, go.
No, Camille, I was hoping she was like, let her rip. Let's get the hell out of here. And you, Kenny, you and Lee I hope you have a great life together.
I'm glad you found your match on the Bachelorette.
Exactly. Sometimes it doesn't always work for the person that you want. Because there was some jungle fever going on there too. Okay.
Well, see, exactly. This is the Jungle Fever episode in many ways. Yes. Yes. Okay. I was definitely like, what are you doing? Like, let it go. Okay. I can also though say there was a moment when I was like, maybe he's a Scorpio. I was like, maybe I understand this on some level. Like, he's like, oh, hell no. Like, I've gotten there. And he even said, so he does redeem himself later, right? And Rachel does say, she's like, look, I don't know about all this. And that even though she trusted Kenny more, still had questions, right? So then they talk later that night. And he does say, that he's a really, I think he said a verbal person, and that, he really lets his emotions out, and he believes in that. Like, if he feels it, then he's going to say it, and then he wants to be done with it. He also said he did have a long fuse, but he said when he gets mad, though, it's done, right? Which
stays.
I think we both relate to, right? We both understand.
Right. We have tempers. We are fiery ladies.
Fiery women, yes. So, and clearly with him talking to his daughter, I mean, almost every time I was like, okay, look, Bachelorette, stop trying to make me cry every time this boy talks to his daughter.
We talk about his daughter. How cute and beautiful she, and she's just had such a beautiful spirit. She's like, Daddy, don't cry because you're gonna make me cry.
Exactly. I know. And she said so many things, about being proud of him, and that's a little girl, and clearly he's doing a good job as a father.
Yes, exactly. One thing we know for sure, he is definitely a great father. Yeah, because he's done a wonderful job with her. So Rachel does give him another chance. She does give him a rose at the end after their conversation, after she was very, direct and real with him. So Kenny gets a rose.
Gets one more shot at it. Okay, and so then we go to the rose ceremony, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so I was definitely like, so we talked a little bit about Josiah the last episode.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I told you I'd never been a big fan of his, right? But was like, okay, this guy, and especially I was like, okay, I think he's also had some alcohol, right? But he starts saying, I wish I had written down some of the things that he said, because I was just like, he calls Asia, like, she's going to pick. So, she eliminates Josiah and also Anthony, right? Who had been the date that she'd had on Rodeo Drive, right? On the horse. Kind of knew, I was hoping Anthony would stay.
Right.
Kind of knew he might go because he hadn't really gotten any serious camera time.
Right, exactly.
And that is always a sign.
Right. That if we don't show the camera, then we're going to be showing you out. Yeah. And we also have to mention, because it was mentioned by Eric in the last episode, that Rachel has chosen more white men than black men for the one-on-one dates.
Yeah.
So just in case you don't remember, Josiah and Anthony are both black. So two black men were sent home.
Exactly.
Only two remained.
No, it was still three at that point. Will, Eric, and Kenny. Kenny still had gotten.
Oh, Will. Right, Will. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll talk about Will in just a minute.
Okay. Anyway, so Josiah was kind of oversized before the rose ceremony.
He was like, how's she going to pick that KGB agent Alex over me? How's she going to pick Adam, who brought a doll to the mansion? Right.
Yeah, and so before the rose ceremony, he said, well, if she doesn't pick me, there is something wrong in her head.
With her brain. Exactly. I was like,
what's wrong with her brain? Maybe she's just not feeling you, dude. That's all.
Exactly.
That's all.
Yeah, he was too much, confidence is one thing, but then you start to go into this other area that, we've called assholeville before. Like, there's a point where it's like, no, dude, you're just being a jackass, like, this isn't just confidence. Like, this is, no, thank you. You can go on. I did, Anthony, though, I wish, he was so cute and also seemed like secure.
Yes.
So, but again, like what we talked about the last recap, like those people who just are like even and, they don't really, they're not going to last.
No.
That's just not.
No. So they didn't last. So then we move on to the first one-on-one date, which was with Eric. Eric finally gets some play, so he can kind of stop complaining about not getting play.
True.
And they had a great date.
They really did. I liked Eric more after that date.
Yes.
Than I had before. You know, because some of the things with him and Lee and him getting, you know, I was sort of like, okay, like, I'm all right with you, but you're not necessarily in my top. But I did, after that day, they had so much fun all around Copenhagen. It seemed like just, yeah, I would love to go on that date. I really want to go to Copenhagen. Again, this whole thing is also functioning as a travel guide for me because I want to go to some of these places.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, Copenhagen.
And then Eric,
awesome.
Eric also said, right, some of about his past history, because he kept saying, oh, you know, like what I've had to go through to get here.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, so tell me more about this. Like, what exactly did you have to go through? And he talked about not really feeling love from his mom, right? Or really anyone, he said. And that causing him, anytime love came when he was, you know, in relationships, that he would always run. And so that he's trying to not do that anymore. So, but is Eric going to be able to do that? Is he going to be able to?
I know he will want to. When we did our last recap, I felt like he's just not ready. I think he's on his journey, absolutely. And I think this Bachelorette experience for him is a part of the journey, but I don't think the destination is going to be with Rachel. I think she's further on in her journey, and I don't think she wants to be with someone that she has to pull. She wants to be with someone who is kind of even a little bit ahead of her, because she needs some help moving forward and trusting people and not running away. So if you have a person who is like skittish and one is, you know, not quite as skittish, I mean, the result is at some point. Yeah, so I think what she will see, she had a great time, and she said that it felt like big kids and just, you know, wonderful. But I think she needs a man that is more secure, more grounded, and further on his journey to help her with the spots that she has, her blind spots about intimacy and commitment. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, maybe at the end we can sort of talk our final four, because I have mine.
Right.
And I agree with that. I think they do also clearly have a connection.
Yeah.
That she
absolutely.
Like, you know, and so, yeah, how far is that going to take them? But yeah, is it going to take them far enough to be like, you get the final rose?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then the guys went into a Viking battle.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Group date. And so basically everyone but Eric and Will, because then Will was also going to get the one-on-one. And yeah, they went at it. And so this is, you know, tricky editing, Bachelorette, you know,
right.
With the busted eye when they were talking about Lee. That's not when he busted his eye. Lied.
Yeah. So Kenny and what was the guy's name that he was fighting? Adam. Kenny and Adam were in this final Viking battle. They had all these Viking games that they wanted them to play,
which were basically everything like pushing people out of the center of this circle. Like that was the aim, no matter what it was. Right. It's like get pushed out of the circle. Yes.
The Vikings had a lot of aggressive games. Okay.
Yeah. Like, yeah. I was like, are these games? Or are these
that's what Viking like. I'm gonna club you over the head and call it a game. So that's cool. No judge.
Yes.
So Kenny and Adam in this final Viking battle for Rachel's heart, and they kind of like started to like rammed each other, and they both got hurt actually. And so they both were bleeding.
Right, and I think they both with their own shields like ended up like whacking themselves and it seemed like okay, guys.
I don't think they would have made it as Vikings in real life.
Like, no, or maybe that's good. Maybe the fact that those other guys didn't bleed, the Vikings would have been like, you're weak. Like,
oh, you're right. You're right. Yes, you're right. They earned some respect. They bled. Yeah.
There you go. That's exactly. So Kenny won when he did in that wrestling match they had before, right? He got beaten, actually not by Adam, by I think somebody who's not there anymore.
Right.
But yeah, so Kenny was victorious, which I think he sort of needed. I mean, after the difficult couple of weeks with Lee, this was sort of like, yes, I did this. I got in there. Except then.
Tell him.
So they go back from the group date and, they have their time each, to spend with Rachel as they always do. And there's, always the ones that are floating to the top. Brian, Peter, Peter actually got the group date rose.
Right.
So that was good, especially after last episode when he didn't, after their hot tub fun. So validating for Peter. And then they were talking, I think, was it actually Adam? Or, no, I think maybe it was Adam who was talking to Rachel at one point, and she was like, oh, yeah, because she was like, injuring, right? And then he was like, yeah, no, it's fine. He said, but, I think, Kenny's doing fine physically, but not emotionally. Oh, no, you know what? It wasn't Adam. It was Matt.
It was Matt.
Yeah. And so then she talked to Kenny, and Kenny said he was he was having a hard time being away from his daughter, right? And that he kind of needed to know, it seemed like he was saying he needed to know, especially given like introducing her to his daughter, that he needed some sort of like reassurances about where they really were. And Rachel couldn't give that to him. So Kenny goes home. And it was a good ending. I mean, it wasn't, I think he definitely was like, yeah, I think this is better. And she was like, I need to be honest with you and say, yeah, we're not there. And so that you should go home. But how did you feel about that? Like, did you think maybe you should have let him stay a little longer, seen if something else could have happened? Or was it like, no, I've seen all I can see in this time?
I think it was a difficult position that she was put in because, I mean, considering what had happened, she was honest with him earlier that day or maybe the next day, you never know with the timing of these episodes, that she had some questions. She did give him a rose, but I think some of the things in the way he interacted with Lee and his temper and dealing with problems, she raised those in the context of what is it like then if you get upset in a relationship,
right?
Yeah. So I definitely think she had some questions, and let's be honest, even before that, he probably wasn't one of the front runners. I mean, I think he was at the middle of the pack in the front, and so she couldn't give him those assurances and said, yeah, maybe you should go home. Because he mentioned the hometown dates, that they're not that far away, and feeling like, okay, am I going to introduce this woman to my child? And if I'm feeling like, she is not seeing me in the final four, whatever. It was difficult. I was like, oh, wow. But I think it was the right decision because every time Kenny spoke with his daughter, he would be sobbing. Right. I mean, his daughter was consoling him. His daughter actually seemed okay. So maybe he was going home more for himself than for him. But, hey, you got to do what you have to do. And I do think it was the right decision.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, yeah, he was like a puddle of tears every time he was talking to his daughter. And I think, that is real. I mean, I don't have kids, right? I don't exactly know what that is, but, to miss, your child like that, I'm sure, is really hard. And then also, I mean, it is real. Like, so if I think, if I'm like, well, I might survive one more week, but I'm not going to go all the way, maybe it's not worth it. Like maybe I just get that extra week with my daughter rather than being here. But also let's, it's not just on Rachel. He made a choice too. He's bringing this up, so maybe he wasn't absolutely feeling Rachel to the extent either. I mean, because if it's one more week, then it's like, okay, I can, push it out for one more week to see.
to see if I can, deepen this connection, knowing where he came from the week before with kind of a deficit, So I don't know. I think in some ways maybe he was, I don't know.
I think he did really like Rachel, but I think the question is, and this is part of, even him not getting the one-on-one date, right? I think, part of that was like, okay, but so how will I even be able to deepen this?
Right.
Because she does hold the cards. I mean, which is good, right? But it's not a regular dating relationship, right? Where you can just be like, well, yeah, we'll go on a date and we'll both see. It's like, am I even going to get the chance to show her more of myself? Like, is she even inclined to want to see that
more? Right.
And so I think, I mean, thinking about that and thinking like, okay, and then what does it mean that I'm going to introduce this woman to my daughter, maybe it's starting to become not worth it.
Right.
But who did get the one-on-one date? Will. And Will, who'd been so good in handball last episode and has proven himself, I feel like, to be a steady, nice guy.
Right. Oh, but can we mention just before we go into the one-on-one date?
Yeah.
So in the conversation, Will had a conversation with Eric before he went on the one-on-one date, and Will revealed that Rachel's not the type that he's dated in the past. And what
do you mean by that, Julie?
And by type, I mean she's black. Okay. Will is also black, if you don't remember. Okay. So Will said that he usually dates white women. And he said because of where he lived, there weren't a whole lot of black women in his town. And then when he went to college, so Rachel kind of represents something new. If you remember that movie with Sanaa Lathan.
I just saw it last week. Yes.
What's the face?
Sanaa Lathan.
Yeah, I know Sanaa Lathan, and I don't remember
Simon Baker.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just saw. Yes. So Rachel is something new for for Will.
Indeed. Yeah. So they go to Sweden, which was very cool, right? Like take a little boat over, and they're walking through, and and I was like, this is not going that well, because it went pretty quickly. Like they were like, and here's Will and Rachel here, and here are they, and here, and they're here, and they're here. Okay, and now the date's almost done. And I was like, this is
where they're standing on a bridge, just looking out, not talking, not holding each other, just looking out. And I'm like, ooh, the chemistry is weak on this date.
Yeah, I know. They held that shot painfully long. I was like, oh, brother, this is not. Yeah, and Rachel was like, so he's held my hand all day, which is nice, but he hasn't done more than that, right? And so at one moment, they're in that cafe, and they talk to that couple who's been married for 35 years, and they kiss, and then Rachel's like, give me a kiss to Will, which I also was like, yes, this is a bad sign. Right? If you have to instruct, that's usually not. And then, they're looking out. Still nothing. He could have kissed her over all of that, right?
He wrapped his arms around her because they were kind of like standing next to each other, not
something.
Yeah.
Anything. He did nothing. So I know. So then they have a dinner, right? And Rachel says, like, this is kind of make or break time. Like, I've liked Will, but I don't know if there's something that spark, there's something missing here.
Right.
So, and then they start to talk about interracial dating, right? Like, so what did she ask him? Oh, I think she said, I feel like I don't really know the man, behind you. And she was she wasn't even going in the direction of like, I don't think she even would have thought of that. Have you dated black girls, right? It was just sort of like, so tell me, more. Like, so how are you feeling about all of this? And he was like, well, actually, I mostly dated white women, so. Oh, okay. And so what did you think? What did Rachel say? What did you think of her reaction to what happened?
Well, I think she handled it well. I mean, it's you know, it's sometimes I think when you hear someone that you're not in someone's type, it's kind of like jarring to hear, you know, that they dated all blondes and you're a brunette, or they dated all brunettes and you're a blonde.
Right. Well, that is, I think, so because she was sort of like she threw like a little bit of shade because she was like, oh, well, interesting. We have the same kind of history. Like, I also grew up in a predominantly, you know, white place. And, you know, I don't know what school she went to, but it seems like she also went to predominantly white college. Right. And she was like, but I never really have that problem. You know, she was like, no, mostly I've dated black men. And clearly, which I'm glad that, you know, not that she needed to say it. Right. But I'm glad that sort of like cleared that air too, that, you know, she's not, again, like Eric brought up, like purposefully just choosing the white guys, you know. Clearly she's open, which she also said, she's like, clearly I'm open to dating whoever, but, you know, finding someone black or dating someone black has never been an issue for me. And I think that does, you know, as you said, like when you realize that someone has dated someone unlike you, you know, that you are an anomaly in their dating history, I think it can spark some, you know, questions like, so if that's what you're normally attracted to, are you as attracted to me?
Right. Exactly. Is this an experiment? I mean, that is a question not just for Will, but for some of the white men. I'm sure for some of the white men, Rachel is an anomaly as well, because they're probably used to dating white women as well. So, you know, so, you know, are you open to something new? You know, but yeah, it is the what you're traditionally attracted to, and is that preventing you from being attracted to me? And I think that it was in her mind at that moment, kind of looking over their date and like, wow, you didn't really touch me. I mean, except holding my hand, you didn't try to kiss me. And now you've told me that you're used to dating white women, and clearly Rachel is not white, or, you know, even as we are light skinned, you know, so there's no question. Okay. So is that the reason why there was no chemistry? I don't know.
Right. And he also said that he had been passionate in his other relationships too, which, you know, I then raised a red flag as well. Like, okay, so not only am I not usually necessarily the person you would date, but also you haven't shown me any of that kind of passion that you're talking about has been so present in your other relationships. So why is that? And I mean, I think, you know, sort of what, so you said, you know, the white guys, you know, for some of them who haven't really, like Dean even said, you know, that he hasn't really dated black women. And because when Eric was saying, well, you know, it might be something that Will needs to say, you know, to Rachel. And Dean was like, well, why do you think, you know, he'd really need to say that? Like, well, because he's black and she's black.
Right.
And I do think that there is a difference there, right? Like, that, you know, understanding, I mean, I think there's definitely some things, you know, about dating outside your race. I mean, in many cultures, right? And also the feeling that, so if you are black but don't necessarily date, you know, black women, I don't know. I feel like there is a bit of a different thing than if you're a white guy who would, you know, normally date white women, right? Like, I mean, I feel like your race would tend to be your default, right? And so if that's not your default, then I guess it does raise maybe different questions about Will than it does for the white guys who haven't really dated black women. But maybe that's not fair. I don't know.
Right.
Like, putting a pressure on him that's not fair.
Right. And at the end of the day, you know, what she's asking all of them, whether they've dated black women or white women or whoever they've dated, is, are you really interested in me?
Exactly.
And so Rachel, after their conversation, after Will saying that he's usually passionate in the relationship, and she said, I didn't feel that today. You know, she said, I feel like we have a good time, and that you've been intent on building the friendship, which is great. But, you know, the kind of romantic side and the chemistry, she's like, I didn't feel that.
Yeah.
And
Well, and he didn't really have an answer for why he didn't, which I think to your point is sort of like, yeah, I mean, on whatever level, there's something that's not here, for me or for you, because otherwise, why wouldn't you have made that move?
Right. Yeah. He said, yeah, more intent in building the friendship and I should have worked harder on the romantic. But when he said that, I was like, yeah, you got to go, because it shouldn't be hard. If you really are digging someone, you want to touch them. You want to kiss them. And it's obvious that Rachel was not, get away, Yeah. She was open to it, and she's, she's fun, and, and obviously seems to be a loving person. So there wasn't that barrier to do that in terms of her behavior. There was an openness there. So if you're not feeling enough and when you know that she's kissed other guys, not that, but she's open to displaying her affection physically, to some extent, then you could have made that move and you didn't. And then the way you're talking about working on it seems like it's going to be forced.
Yeah, I mean, him saying like, well, I didn't think about it. And to your point, it's like, no, I think we all know, okay, if you're on a date that you're attracted to somebody, you're not need to think about it. Actually, you have to stop thinking about
it.
Okay? All right. I've definitely been on dates where it's like, stay focused. What did he say? What? Okay. Yes. Get it together. So no, Will. Which is okay. Like she's not the girl for you. And which means you're not the guy for her, So yeah. Will goes home. And you know what I thought was so funny? He didn't even get to eat his dinner. Like I was looking when they got it from the table, like the plates it was full, like entire thing right there. So
hungry and heartbroken.
Exactly. Heartbroken. And then so they have the rose ceremony, and Rachel got really emotional about it. She had to leave the room at one point, which she also said she doesn't like showing emotion.
Right.
So, but it is, I mean, it's getting, the numbers are getting down there. So there are fewer men where it's just like, oh, whatever. If he goes home, who cares? In some ways, I think Lee was the last of that.
Right.
But that.
Right.
And yeah, now it's like, okay, so I got to make tough decisions. So I have to say there was a moment, even though, I was watching the whole episode, where I forgot that Peter and Eric had already gotten roses.
Right.
So when she didn't call their names, I was like, what? What's going on? But then I was like, oh, never mind. Forget it. The rose is right there. Okay. Never mind. So yeah, so Alex goes home, the undercover KGB agent, according to Josiah.
Yes. Great personality. I think they had more connection early on in the show, and then it seemed like they had less time together. It didn't seem to be really deepening.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
yeah, she said they had a strong connection, but it wasn't getting sort of as strong, or wasn't as far along as the other connections.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that really is the thing, because now the people that she has in the, in her roster, she has strong connections with them, and everybody also has strong connections with her. So with Will, she was addressing, I don't feel like you really have a strong connection with me.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And with Kenny, the hesitation and the, with his daughter, and her connection with him was not as strong. So yeah. So now, I mean, next week I think is really going to be difficult for her. Yeah. So
Final Four, who you got?
Wait, before we go to Final Four, so talking about Jungle Fever, right?
Yes.
Who are the?
I know. There's one black man left.
Honestly, from the outset, if you would have told me that he would be the last black man standing, I would say no, absolutely not.
You're right. Absolutely. I wouldn't have thought that at the beginning either.
No, yeah. I would not have. And then he's not in my Final Four. So There will be no black in my final four. I don't think there's gonna be. Eric's not gonna be.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so who's your final four?
Which is complete opposite of basketball, but you know, if we're talking about
what?
Final four black rockology.
Oh yeah, exactly. No black people. That is the opposite of.
That is the opposite.
What usually college basketball would look like. Indeed.
Right.
So okay, who's your final four?
Peter, Brian.
It's Colombian, so we should say man of color.
Man of color. Okay.
Yeah.
Dean. And okay, Matt or what's the other guy's name? I forget his name.
Adam?
I'm gonna have to go with Adam.
Okay. So, okay, my final four, Peter, Dean, Brian, and Eric. I think Eric is gonna hang on.
Really?
I do. I think they had so much fun on that date. I think he's gonna hang on. I don't think, it's not gonna be, he's not gonna win. It's not gonna be the final rose. But I do think he's gonna make it to the fourth. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, Matt and, Rachel seem to have a nice connection, but I'm like, I don't even really know much about this. Like, this doesn't feel electric in the way the other ones do. And same thing with Adam. He seems nice, but I think both of them next episode are gone. And I think the hometown visits are those four.
All right. So we shall see.
We shall see.
Yes.
Getting a glass of something sparkling on this.
Exactly. Yes.
And have to get to the four. We'll have to, bet on who's gonna be the winner. Who's gonna be the last man standing.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Well, unless you have any more lessons in interracial love, we can wrap it up and see what happens.
Yes.
I mean, it does seem like the chances are better for sure that this is going to be some interracial loving by the end of it.
Right. That's gonna exactly. Which is, it's interesting where our country has gone. So I'm glad to see a Black woman as the epitome of, femininity and desire and this most wanted woman. I think it's great.
Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yes. More power to Rachel.
More power to Rachel.
Get your man, girl. Get your man. Whoever he may be. Yes. All right. Well, that's it for this week. You got two episodes this week. So we'll be back next week to chat more about all things Bachelorette. So visit us on the website. And I'm going to talk about attachment theory on the website.
This spinstersunion.com.
Yes, exactly. Yes, go visit, enjoy. All right. Bye.
Bye.